Welcome back, everybody. In today's video, we're going over 5 buy low tight ends just based on their value, scheme fit, any coaching changes, free agent additions, what the overall offense is going to look like, things like that. Watch the end of this video, and you should see some pretty low-key tight ends on this list that you could probably get for next to nothing. And I believe that if you do make some of these trades, you'll see this time next year their value will be a lot more than it is right now. So the first guy this is the first tight end that I thought about when going over the idea of this video. It's Brenton Strange for the Jacksonville Jaguars. As you can see, his value has kind of went up and up over the past year just due to the Evan Ingram release and kind of some of his performances last year as well. When he gets target volume, he's able to really take advantage of it and have some pretty solid games. The quarterback situation last year with Mac Jones was not great. So, his production was impacted a little bit there. But he's still only 24 years old, and I think he's going to be one of the focal points in the offense. Trevor Lawrence obviously loves throwing to his tight ends, if you know about 2023 Evan Ingram. So I was kind of shocked with what you can get this guy for at this point in time. Before we look at some of these trades, let's go over the Jacksonville Jaguar offense real quick. So before I go over the offense, actually, let's go ahead and note that Liam Cohen is now the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, a guy that basically revived Baker Mayfield's career and made that Buccaneers offense look very, very scary. So I think he can do a similar thing. Having an offensive coach is always, a positive thing for an offense, obviously, unless you're a bad OC, which Liam Cohen is not. I think he's going to make Trevor Lawrence look a lot better, and he's going to have some schemes dialed in to where Brenton Strange might be one of the focal points of this offense, similarly to how Cade Otton was used, maybe even better, because I do think Brenton Strange as a talent is better than Cade Otton. Moving on to the running backs, Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby are a solid running back tandem. I think Etienne's going to get more passing volume this year than he did last year. And then in terms of the wide receivers, you got BTJ and basically nobody else. Gabe Davis can't stay healthy, and even when he is healthy, he's very inconsistent with his production. De'Ami Brown had a big-time playoff performance, right, with the Commanders, but I don't know if that translates because he's been relatively underwhelming his whole career. And then you got Brenton Strange. I know Johnny Munt is his backup, but I think Brenton Strange is going to be the clear tight end one here. And I think, he can be a solid in that tight end 6 to 14 range, somewhere in there. I don't think he gets below the tight end 14. And if you look at some of these trades, that's great value. We're talking about a 4th round pick, a late 4th, which is basically nothing, and Taj Washington, who is probably a free agent in a lot of these leagues that you guys are in. If he's not, you can basically get him after the rookie draft because he's probably going to be dropped. And you get Brenton Strange for that. You're basically getting him for free at this point. And honestly, I'll say in my league, it is a 10-team league, one of the leagues that I'm in. I was able to pick Brenton Strange up for free, so off of the waivers. So, he might even be a free agent in your league, and you may not have to pay anything for him, which is awesome. This one is a little borderline for me. A late 2nd this year for a late 3rd this year in Brenton Strange. I think you can get him for less. I think this is a win for you if you're on the Brenton Strange side, but I believe that you can get better value. Like, for example, this next trade, mid-3rd, the 304 for Brenton Strange. I would do that all day as well because there's not going to be any. If you need a tight end, there's not going to be a tight end worth taking at the 304, in my opinion. So overall, if you can make any of these trades happen, maybe try to get a little more value off the 211, but if you can't, I'd still be okay with that. But like I said, you might even be able to get this guy for free. So here's one of the few veterans on this list. We have Mike Gesicki. Just got paid a bag for, I think, 3 or 4 years for the Bengals. They valued him as a focal point in the offense, right? They think he's going to be a focus for them. And just with that alone, I'm buying into him, because if you have a piece of that Bengals offense, you know how valuable it is. Even Chase Brown, who I do not like as a talent at all, has still been relatively valuable just because of how explosive that offense is with Joe Burrow. You know, when T. Higgins got hurt last year, Mike Gesicki was absolutely dominant. So, yeah, he's a little older, but for what you can get him for right now, I'm not saying no. So before looking at some of these trades, let's go ahead and look at the Bengals offense. Like I said, it's absolutely explosive. You got Joe Burrow, who's a top 3 quarterback in the league. If he had a defense last year, he's probably winning MVP. Running back, you got Chase Brown, who can be a pass catcher, I guess. Zach Moss, who's like their goal line back. He's not much. And Samaje Perine, who's going to be their third down back probably, which is kind of weird. Kind of makes me like Chase Brown even less with that signing. And then in terms of their wide receiver room, Jamar Chase is the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty right now for a reason. He's coming off a historical season, Triple Crown winner. Jermaine Burton, who, if he can stop getting into trouble, is a very high upside wide receiver. T. Higgins is one of the best possession wide receivers in the entire NFL. But if he can stay healthy, he's going to be insane. But problem is he gets hurt all the time. Yoshi Voss is, their slot guy. He's fine. And then in terms of the tight end room, Mike Gesicki's the guy. Eric Gall had some solid showings last year, but hurt himself. I think it's a RIP for him, unfortunately. Just back-to-back ACL tears, just can't stay healthy now. I think he's done. So Mike Gesicki's going to be the guy. They paid him like he's going to be the guy. So I believe that he'll be one of the key contributors in this offense. Now, looking at some of these trades, like I said, you can get him for basically nothing. A 2025 306, you get a third back next year in Gesicki. I'm saying yes to that all day. Mike Gesicki for Jameis Winston, all day. I'm doing that all day long. And a 2026 third and fourth for Gesicki, I'm doing that all day long. Like I said, you can get him for practically nothing, and he can give you some maybe tight end 8 to 12. He was the tight end 13 last year, and he wasn't a focal point until T. Higgins went down. And they were trying Eric Gall as their starter as well in some of these games. So, yeah, I think all of these are smash accepts for me. So, this one's kind of interesting, right? Noah Gray for the Kansas City Chiefs. Kind of a low-key tight end. He was a 5th-round pick in 2021. He's 26 years old. Kind of came on relatively strong last year in the absence of Travis Kelce when he just wasn't performing. Noah Gray was performing. And, I think he's probably rostered in most of your leagues because everybody's kind of seeing the same sort of thing. I believe Noah Gray is going to take over for Travis Kelce when he inevitably retires next year. And when that happens, Noah Gray is going to skyrocket in value. Whether you believe in him or not as a player, it makes so much sense to buy him because as soon as Kelce retires, his value doubles. So, and everybody's going to be like, he's the Travis Kelce replacement. Even if he's not even as close to as good as Travis Kelce is, it doesn't matter. You flip him for double next year. So this is mainly why he's on the list. I like him as a player personally. I don't think he's Travis Kelce by any means. But, like I said, you got to play the market, and I think Noah Gray is a fantastic buy low at this point. So before seeing what you can get for Noah Gray, which is basically practically nothing, let's go over the Kansas City Chiefs offensive roster. So you got Patrick Mahomes and Gardner Minshew. I think those are very solid quarterback tandem. Patrick Mahomes has shown that he can be one of the greatest quarterbacks on the field at any given time. He's been a little inconsistent here last year. I think that's mainly due to Matt Nagy being a terrible play caller. That's just me. In terms of the running back room, they desperately need another piece. Isaiah Pacheco did not look good after his leg injury. Kareem Hunt's probably just a goal line back at this point, but was solid in the limited showing that he got last year. In terms of the receiver room, I think Rashee Rice is probably getting suspended for a good majority of next season. And if he doesn't, he's still going to be a little rusty coming off that big knee injury. Hollywood Brown's going to be the deep threat as well as Xavier Worthy. I think Xavier Worthy is going to be their gadget player. Hollywood Brown's going to be more their Z. And then the X, Juju, Tyquan, those, they don't really have an X, and I think they're going to address that in the draft. And then you have the tight end room. Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, and then Jared Wiley. I think he was a 6th-round pick last year for them. He's not been able to stay healthy. So it's basically Travis Kelce and Noah Gray. I think Travis Kelce, I know there was a rumor that if Travis Kelce did stay, he would have to take less money, and he would have to be basically a locker room guy mainly, and he would be less of a focal point in the offense. I don't believe that. So I do think he's going to be the tight end 1 there, and Noah Gray will get a little more touches this year, so his value is going to go up a little bit. So even short-term value increase, I think that's going to happen as well, but definitely in 2026 when Kelce retires, his value is going to double probably. And then in terms of his trade value, I mean, we're trading late thirds for him. I mean, the 308 for Noah Gray, smash accept for me. A 308 in a lot of your rookie drafts aren't even going to make the team. You'll probably drop them afterwards unless you really believe in that player. Gardner Minshew for Noah Gray, smash accept. Unless Mahomes goes down, I think even if Mahomes goes down, Gardner Minshew is not a high caliber starter in my opinion. I think he's a solid backup, but that's about it. And then Noah Gray for another Noah Fant. Noah Fant's kind of cooked, guys. He hasn't shown anything in the past few years outside of being your average tight end. So, yeah, I would take Noah Gray all the way over Noah Fant at this point. So it's mainly just playing the market here, guys. That's the most important thing in Dynasty is just predicting where the market's going to go on these players. And it's clear as day, guys. Next year, unless they trade him for some stupid reason for nothing, the Chiefs, or, Kelce decides to play longer, which he's not, his value is going up. So the next guy on this list is a guy that we're very high on. It's Ja'Tavion Sanders. Very big, athletic type of tight end. When he's utilized in that offense, he's super young. When he's utilized in the offense, he's definitely going to increase in value. Obviously, the Carolina offense was not great this year. He's the tight end 35. But even coming out of college, out of Texas, we loved him. So I think with where it's going right now, I don't think the Carolina Panthers can do much worse than what they've done over the past couple years. And I think they finally see that Ja'Tavion Sanders is better than Tommy Tremble. Just give him the ball, and he will make things happen. If you're a film junkie, you probably are going to tend to agree with me on this. Ja'Tavion Sanders is a very solid tight end. So let's go ahead and look at some of the trade packages you can get for Ja'Tavion Sanders right now. Before we look at these trade values, let's go ahead and look at the Carolina Panthers offense. So Bryce Young has unfortunately struggled the past couple years that he's been at Carolina. It is what it is. Andy Dalton is a solid backup. In terms of the running backs, you got Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle, who will probably be splitting carries a good bit. And then Jonathan Brooks, whenever he gets healthy, whenever that is, he will probably be taking over for Dowdle. But Chuba Hubbard was fantastic last year. If you owned him in fantasy, he was a great sleeper target. And then in terms of the wide receiver room, it's kind of bad, guys. I mean, Adam Thielen is very old, but somehow is still continuing to be productive when he's healthy. Xavier Legette has been an athletic masterclass. I mean, he is a athletic freak, but he's having some issues with drops, things like that. He's kind of a linear athlete as well. And then Jalen Coker at a Holy Cross. And then in terms of the tight end room, you got Tommy Tremble, who's been in the league 3-4 years at this point, and he hasn't done barely anything. Jatavion Sanders is listed at second in the depth chart. I don't buy that. I think he's going to be the starter in the offense next year. So do with that what you will. In terms of the trade packages that you can give for Jatavion Sanders, Juwan Jennings for a 2026 second, I would do that right now anyways. But you add Jatavion Sanders on top of that, it's even more of a win in my opinion. You can trade the 208 right now for JT Sanders and Jalen Wright, who is an excellent handcuff at running back. If A-Chain goes down, he has shown an history with injury. You can basically get a very high upside running back and a high upside tight end as well for a late second. So it's a little borderline for me, but I'm probably taking the Jalen Wright, JT Sanders side, depending on, I think this would be a draft day trade for me. If I don't like anybody at the 208, then I'd probably trade there. Then you have a 2027 second. I love the 2027 class, but see what you're getting out of this. You get the 2027 second and the 311. That's what you're giving up for Darnell Mooney, who last year showed out. I mean, 1,000-yard receiver. Surprising showing last year. Even though he was a 1,000-yard receiver with the Bears, we already knew he had the talent. He was just in a terrible situation. He goes to the Falcons and is a productive receiver again. Jatavion Sanders is in this trade, and then a 2027 third. I'm taking that. You get a solid wide receiver, a depth piece, spot starter when you need him. Jatavion Sanders, who could be your tight end one if you're in need of a tight end. And then a 2027 third, you're basically trading back around and then another third. For all of that, I think I would take that all day as well. So, the value is kind of low on him. It's higher than the other players on this list just because he's 22. So, I know I probably say this every single year, but I think this is the year for Chig Okonkwo. Just because of the quarterback situation, if they go with Cam Ward, which I'm 90% sure they do, he's going to have the best quarterback that he's basically had in his entire career. He is the starter there with no question. Right? He's still relatively young. He's an athletic guy. He's not the best at blocking because he is so undersized, but once Cam Ward gets there, you saw him at Miami. He used Elijah Arroyo a lot. He loves his tight ends. So I think Chigim Okonkwo is definitely going to have a higher value next year than he does right now, even if he underperforms. Once Cam Ward goes there, I think his value increases immediately. So playing the market here for sure. So before we go over the trade value for Chig right now, let's go ahead and look at the Titans offense real quick. So presumably they're going to pick Cam Ward number 1 overall. So I don't think Will Levis is going to be trotting out there at quarterback this following year. And then at the running back position, they have the mixture of Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears, which is an adequate running back room. It's nothing crazy, but it's okay. And then in terms of wide receivers, they basically have no one outside of Calvin Ridley. I mean, you have Calvin Ridley, who, he did have 1,000 yards last year, but, he's a little bit older, and he's basically the only real talented wide receiver they have on the offense. Treylon Burks has been a gigantic bust. He can't stay healthy, and when he is on the field, he's not very good either. Van Jefferson isn't great either. He's a solid wide receiver 3. And then you go to the tight end room, you see the tight ends, nobody outside of Chig. So he has a real opportunity of being the wide receiver 2 in this offense, basically the second pass catching option in this offense. So yeah, he's going to have a lot of opportunity this year to turn it up and actually produce a solid season. He's got the athletic profile, he's got the size, and the overall athleticism to be a, tight end 1 in the NFL. He just hasn't had anything in terms of quarterbacks. So looking at the trade offers here, you can get Chig for a late third and a late fourth this year. For a guy that could possibly finish as a top 10 tight end this year, I would do that. I mean, more than likely. I mean, unless your tight end room is very stacked and you don't see where he's going to start, I mean, maybe don't do that, but I would be doing that pretty much all day. And then Chig for Amari Cooper straight up. Amari Cooper's not even signed to a team right now. I mean, he might not even play next year. And if he does, he's going to be in a kind of a depth role, in my opinion. He didn't look particularly good last year, unfortunately. So I would grab the 25-year-old tight end over the wide receiver that may have a year or two left at max. And then this last trade here, you're getting Calvin Ridley and Chig. So you basically get the two best passing pass catchers in this offense for a second round and a fourth rounder in 2027. I like the 2027 class. This is the one I would hesitate on the most just because of that second rounder in 2027. But you're also getting Calvin Ridley as well. So if you do believe in Cam Ward, I think this is a solid trade offer for you. But definitely if you can get Chig for a third or a fourth or a late third and a late fourth, I'd be doing that pretty much every single time it gets offered to me. And that's our list, guys. Chig at 5, JT Sanders at 4, Noah Gray at 3, Gesicki at 2, and Brenton Strange at 1. Like I said, it's all about playing the market. And I think all of these guys' value are going to be more than they are right now this time next year. And even if you don't believe in any of these players, their value are going to go up. All of these values for these players are going to go up after this season. The only guy that I would be concerned about is Gesicki because of the age. Maybe that leads to some injuries. But I think he's going to be one of the focal points of the offense outside of T and Jamar Chase. I think he's going to get good work because it's a high passing volume offense. And then Brenton Strange obviously is the biggest scream buy low tight end in my opinion. So yeah, you got to play the markets, guys. And like I said, if you don't believe in them, just trade them for double what you traded for them for. So, with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.